Kasem, and I'm bringing you the second episode of Get Real with Casey Kasem. On this episode, I talked with Gabe Geering. He is one of the co-hosts of the Open Bar podcast, and he's just an overall awesome human being. You've probably heard him do the rap intros to some of your favorite podcasts. You can follow him at FFManbun on Twitter. You can also follow me at TheCaseyKasem on Twitter and the podcast on Twitter at GetReal_pod. The podcast is also available as part of the DAP network. You can find my writing at The Fantasy Footballers and with Fighting Chance Fantasy. You can also go and rate and review this podcast. I know that's like the cool thing for people to do. So if you want to give me some feedback, that'd be pretty dope. I appreciate everybody so far that has contacted me to tell me how much they enjoyed the podcast. Hope you guys will continue to enjoy it. And here's Gabe Geering. We're all good for now. And that is that. Well, so you said you haven't turned your microphone on in a while, so I'm glad that
I know it's been a couple weeks, or I guess just a week. I don't know. Just been different. That like potting just feels different.
Yeah.
Even right now.
I agree with that. I was like, okay, I'm gonna start this up so that everybody can just chill. I know your podcast is the Open Bar is a pretty nice and chill place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't even know what that is some weeks, but man, it's good. We just kick it.
And you're one of the first, I guess, podcast that I can, go back and think of that's been this just free flowing. We don't really have a show sheet. Secret, they don't have a show sheet. But you guys were kind of the innovators on that, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit. And I mean, oh yeah, we're live. Are we podding?
Yeah.
Are we podding right now? Oh, I had no idea we were podding.
We just jump in right in head first.
I know. Yeah, you're right. I
was just talking to you like for fun about your podcast. Like, why would I do
that? Well, then I was rereading your DM, and I was like, all right, so I think we're just talking. But I'm here now. I'm with it. So
no, basically we are just talking. Hey, that's what this is all about. This is just talking about like you as a person in the fantasy community, for people who want to get to know you, people who already know you and just want to know you more, or like just the random, I like to call them kids because I'm old, the random guy or girl that wants to like jump into doing this stuff and not be scared, to like dip their toes in the water.
I mean, just jump on Twitter. It's too easy. Like
for real. I think the number one thing to get us all involved in it, I think, is Twitter.
I think a lot of it used to be just actually finding something that worked, that like helped people, and you could find like advice and you could listen to them. But then I think people kind of started figuring out like, well, I have access to this too. And like and a lot of the initial analysis was really just kind of like, this is what I saw. And like, I don't think a lot of people even knew what like yards per carry meant in terms of like fantasy production. Like they were just saying like, Le'Veon Bell is getting 5 yards per carry, like obvious 101 pick in redraft leagues or whatever. And I don't know, I think people were just kind of saying things, and like that's totally fine. It's not a knock at all. It's just interesting to see the progression over time when there was just so few podcasts back in the day, that you trusted all those people, and you still do. But we all found out that we could kind of do a similar thing. So now it's less about like finding something new. There are still new things to find that like correlate to, fantasy production, but I think it's more about your brand and like what you do, like what, this, like you're just trying to, I mean, and I don't mean like this is the same as every other podcast, because it's not. Podcasting can be different, but the thing that you bring to the table as far as like what makes a player good or like how to draft is like, I don't know, it's all kind of the same at this point. the brand and how you bring it to the table and how you display it to the people that are going to listen, I think is, far more interesting than just like the thing it is.
Mm-hmm.
And what you said about the open bar, it's kind of exactly what that is.
And yeah, and prior to doing the open bar, like I remember listening to you on your lovely, wonderful, most excellent podcast back in the day, the
Hey, yo.
grab bag. Okay, no, that was like the concept was something totally like brand new, like you were saying. Like it was fantasy football, but it like reinvented itself, the topic and everything, and bringing those people on. So, what made you decide that you wanted to do that?
Well, I mean, just continuing what I said, like there were only so many podcasts that I was listening, and I was addicted to them. Listening to podcasts, any and all of them, they were probably going to be listened to by me at that point, but there weren't as many, So it was the ESPN one, the Fantasy Focus, or the footballers were kind of sliding in there, and then started getting into like Football Guys, and like I would listen to Football Guys. Kind of became my thing for quite a while, because they had a daily thing that was more interesting to me. Is like they were different things, and you knew like what day of the week you were looking forward to, kind of thing. Like this was IDP days, this was just kicking it with Sigmund Bloom on the couch, and like that was so cool, because then it was like this kind of diverse thing in one network, but kind of sort of the same group of people. That probably inspired me the most to like start a I know this is weird, but inspired me the most to like start a podcast. And it kind of actually mimicked that, which, like, reflecting on that, I'm like, why would I just copy something and do that again? And so I mean, I a lot of people don't know, but I did a solo podcast. Like, I don't even know if I guess I called it Grab Bag Fantasy. I don't even know what I called it.
That's what it was
but
called.
I would literally do a podcast every single day of the week, just like Football Guys did. And I would do recaps, and I would talk about IDP, and I would talk about DFS. And I don't even know why I was doing it. It was just like I was addicted to it. And I did it for the whole first season. And that was like 5 years ago, as far as like getting into podcasting. And you'd see like 2 or 3 listeners or something. And I'm like, this is so stupid. And it was like, this is like mostly just for me. It's like my lovely wife would listen to it on her way to work.
Nicer than my wife.
I know. Well,
yeah.
And I think my dad would listen to it now and then too. And it's just like, I don't even know what this is for. And then kind of was like hopping onto Twitter a little bit, and saw that and sneaking into Dynasty as well, saw UTH, shout out to Chad and Katie, and Doug Veach. I remember it was actually just Doug and Chad back then. And them and Dynasty Nerds, and Rich and Matt at Dynasty Nerds, those 2 podcasts like super got me into Dynasty. And I was like, okay. I knew I've been playing this redraft, like a little bit of IP, maybe a little DFS. And I'm like, I know nothing. Like, this Dynasty game is something else. And so then I was like, I need more. I need that now. And then I kind of stumbled upon, I think, Dynasty Happy Hour somehow, Tyler and the gang, and Chris Whitman at that point was doing the podcast as well. And because I just needed more, because Dynasty kind of started becoming my new thing. And they had a website, and they're kind of hiring writers or whatever. And Dynasty Nerds was actually too. So I started writing a little bit as well, and kind of joined the family at that point. But I didn't know how much I liked writing, because it was just like it was so much work for like, no disrespect to the guys paying, because I totally I get it. I'm just
No,
like,
Russ
man,
said the same thing last week.
yeah, it's like $5, $10. Like, no, this is stupid.
Oh, his was more
And
like, I rather just talk because when I write, it just sounds like how I talk, and yeah.
I mean, I think writing is super cool and dope. And I used to read a lot too. And
Mhm,
I think you can make writing really, really interesting. But I think if you can transform it into a podcast form, it becomes far more interesting for me, just from an audio perspective. And I think just
mhm,
how like technology is developing and like how life is developing. Like Matt Waldman really reminds me of that, and Sigmund Bloom. Like to
mhm.
me, they sound like writers when they're speaking. And um especially like Waldman, how he just uses metaphors just like off the top, or maybe he has them like, written in his pocket or something, like Eminem walking around and he like writes down rhymes every once in a while or something. He's like, that's Matt Waldman writing down metaphors, like, oh yeah, Nick Chubb's kind of like a something, like, I don't know. So I don't know. I thought all that was dope, just, and all this is just like people are so dope at putting out content, and I just wanted to kind of be one of those people, but I wasn't sure what one of those people was. Um, and then I don't know, it's just kind of floating for a while, going through, not figuring out like what it was that I was. And Tyler had mentioned the open bar thing, and just as like a trial, and like, hey, does anybody want to try this? Like just some guys kicking it. And um and I guess I skipped over my grab bag fantasy portion of
Eh.
how you thought that was cool. And I'm like,
I
no, it
did
wasn't
think
that
about.
cool.
I'm like
No, but it
fangirling
was.
over
All right, fine. Rewind. So grab bag fantasy.
What I was gonna bring up last time on the episode with Gabe. All right, no,
Yeah.
but what's gonna what I wanted to say about that was, like, J Mike was on there at one point. I remember that distinctly.
Yeah.
And
That's very
was
important to
was
point
that the
out. Which
first
is
time?
why I
Was
need
it?
to go back.
Yes. Was that the first time that you had ever met him and talked to him, or had you talked to him before?
I know it doesn't seem like it, but yeah, it was. In fact, I mean, anyone who had a team on there, aside from like my brother, I had my brother come on once, and but aside from him, everyone was new, meeting him for the first time,
Mhm,
which was always super dope. Like that you could just reach out to a random person and they'd like they're literally there with their team. They're obviously like kind of addicted to it, possibly as much as me. And we get to have a conversation about it, and I can possibly like compliment it or steer it in a direction that's positive. So that was unique with grab bag. And I've seen a couple other pods doing that nowadays too, and I just, that format's so cool, like
yeah.
like and especially like I think it's probably better now than when I did it, just because there wasn't as much content out there. Like now there's just like so many outlets and so many like different formats and all this craziness. Scott Fish and
Mhm.
Ryan McDowell are kind of empires in that sense, that they just brought so much uniqueness to the game. And um so obviously people need help. like,
Yeah.
like
And we're
how
just
do you figure out a kitchen sink league, and like
yeah.
that you have to figure out all these auction values and blah blah blah. And it's like, man, just a whole nother level. So
There's so many
um
groups. I mean, you can find an audience. So
yeah, and that too. I mean, yeah, that's a crazy like thing to try and think about and like find within that like niche, because
mhm,
um I had I had thought about that. I'm like, this is useful for this person,
mhm.
pretty much,
Yeah.
like I don't know how diverse this can be. And like I said, I
Yeah.
think it's better now because there's so many more players out there, and like kind of the same league and of the same variety, even though it is still so diverse. But yeah, that was so anyway, grab bag was that. It was me bringing on a guest. They had a team, and we would talk about it. and I would try my best to kind of assess it myself, but I would also bring on like a pro of sorts or an analyst of sorts, between who'd I have? I had Harmon on there, Dynasty Tim, from DHH, Dynasty Frank, just random guys I just thought were either dope on Twitter or just smart. And so that was fun. And the show with Tim had J Mike on there. And Tim was just, in love with J Mike. With J Mike's voice, and who isn't at this point, right? That's what it's all about.
Right. I think that is the 101 of what came.
Right. And so Tim said, yo, Tyler, you need to get J Mike on a show. And at that point, I was kind of doing open bar here and there, like whatever. It was just kind of like I didn't even know what it was. I was just kind of going on and talking and kicking it. And then ultimately, Tyler was like, yo, want to do this show with J Mike? And I'm like, yeah. I remember him, pretty sure I'm the only one who's podcasted with him. So yeah, I think it'd work out all right. We vibed, and we certainly did vibe, still vibing. I don't even know how long it's been, like 3 years or something. I don't know. I think J Mike has a better count than me, but we don't like count any of our episodes either. So
yeah, you guys got a lot.
yeah. So that I think that kind of transformed the brand of we don't, I say now we don't know what we are, but I think I really didn't know what it was until J Mike came on, and then we're like, yeah, this is what it is. And man, it's just it's certainly not a podcast that's grown like to crazy heights, no, as far as you were talking about with audiences. Like J Mike always just says it best of, it's your favorite podcast, and that's really mostly what it is, because there are just so many podcasts out there. Like, yeah, we do this for the people, but I'd imagine that we're doing it for some people that have a podcast.
Oh, for sure.
Or they're thinking about it.
That's it. I mean, that's exactly it. And there's so many characters in the whole fantasy football community, so when you find out that so-and-so is going to be on the open bar, you're like, I want to listen. I want to find out what goes down. Like, it's such a great concept. And we get to learn about so many people that, like, I followed so many people from that show just because I didn't know who they were, but they were guesting on the same night that one of, my homies was. So I was like, all right, this is cool. And you guys were like my first like time ever recording was on your show. So like that was pretty dope too.
Yeah. And not just you. I mean, like people kind of swing back to the open bar for as like we're a reference on a resume, like like either started from Grab Bag Fantasy or the open bar or something. Like yeah, we've had a few people on that were just it was their first time podcasting, and that's the best place to do that, honestly, because we're not like special. We're just kicking it. Like it's literally that at us in a bar, allegedly, talking shop, like about fantasy, about football, about your favorite soup, whatever. So it's a vibe.
Yeah, and some of us just black out afterwards, but I'm like,
look,
I don't want to listen to I listen to like the first 5 minutes if I'm on, and I'm like, all right, I don't want to know what came after that.
The transformation.
I know I'm not the only one it happens to. I know there's a lot. I could name names. I'm not going to. They know who they are.
Yeah,
but
they're in the archives. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, with that too. Like you were talking about how there are so many different podcasts, and it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. For you, it's a good thing because you're on everybody's opening soundtrack. You're the theme guy, right?
Yeah, that yeah, what?
I mean, how
so
exactly
weird.
did that happen? Like
Well, I mean, I've been making music for a really long time, since I've been in like 8th grade, which is what, like, I don't know, 17 years or so, and not necessarily like consistently, but doing it. And it, it, it had been hated on all through high, and like, yeah, sure, like was corny as heck in high school, and just awful, and even through college, not good. But and I had released like mixtapes and stuff, like all this whatever, like 4 5 like mixtapes out of college. And I think the last one I had like released was 2013 or something. And then pretty much had started teaching then, and moved to Austin, and hadn't really like done much of it anymore, because it was so depressing that like I would create this stuff and no one cared. Like, again, how I was referencing grab bag fantasy is like my wife would listen to it. And it was just like, this is so stupid. Like, why would I waste my time with this? And then but I would, when I started teaching, I kind of and I had a couple friends that would just make these videos just about rapping about like funny stuff, and that always kind of intrigued me. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that's better for me, because I'm not like gonna do what maybe your typical rapper is going to rap about, which I think it's a whole lot more open now, thankfully. But uh but anyway, I did a bunch of raps about random stuff, about puppies, and they were just kind of parodies at that point. And I would do some math raps and stuff, and started gaining some confidence again, because people kind of started enjoying it, like,
Mhm.
okay. And eventually we started the open bar, and I was like, maybe I could try an intro for this and people would enjoy it, and just kind of threw it out there. And super positive reaction, like, and a weird positive reaction that I've never really experienced before, because like I said, like, for years, just hardly anything that was ever positive. Like, it was awful, it was brutal. And yeah, um just to like see people like genuinely enjoy something that was created, was just, it felt good, so made that intro, and then people started kind of hitting me up. I think Tyler Gee was the first one, from F3, welcome to the franchise. He asked me to make one, and then so and so asked me to make one, so and so. I mean, I couldn't believe that people kept asking me. It was a weird feeling, because like I said, like, no one cared before. and I like, it's weird. It's what do you call that psychological thing, like imposter syndrome? Is that
Oh
right?
yeah, I think so. Yes.
I'd have to
I
I
don't
have
know.
I have to Google real quick.
Google it.
Pause to Google. Imposter syndrome,
Syndrome.
psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills. Yes, exactly.
Yes, there you
Boom.
go.
I thought so.
Learn something new.
Yeah. So I was like, no way that this is like, and it's about like fantasy football. Like, this is so stupid. Like, why would anyone like this? This is not real. But people kept asking, and I just kept creating, and they kept enjoying it. And what, like 40 intros later or something, like, people are still asking. And baby came through, and pandemic came through, and
Mhm.
teaching in a pandemic came through. So side note, sorry about the people that I owe an intro to, I'm working on it. But yeah, that's it's crazy. Like, why? Yeah. Like
But
we said about how many podcasts are out there, it's like, yeah, it's kind of like a a stupid, silly market to be in, but it's kind of like a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
No joke.
go ahead, start your podcast.
Please do. Well, yeah, and it's funny because whenever I listen to a brand new podcast and I hear the intro start and it's, the classic Gabe,
Yeah.
beat, and here comes Gabe, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good podcast. I mean, I trust Gabe. Now that I know there's 40 out there, I'm not so sure I trust you, but hey, so many.
Some of them were kind of just floated
Well,
out for a few episodes and then they decided not to, kind of thing. But
yeah.
there's probably about 20 to 25 that are still consistently running.
You're gonna drop like a Fantasy Cares mixtape, and people
I know.
can.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Stompy, Stompy was kind of reaching out to me to try and do that, and just wasn't the right summer for
No.
me to cook that up.
No.
But I would like to try and help out with that someday for sure.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, I mean, I just, how do you keep yourself sane? You sound like you have a million things on your plate. How do you, because I was talking to Russ about this last week too, and I'm going to ask you, I know you're a family man as well. How do you manage to like do everything you do and like put on a happy face and get in front of the camera and talk?
Couple of things. First and foremost, my wife
Yes.
is incredible. I as far as like an origin story of my first fantasy football league, I'm not like super deep into this game. Like I only started in like 2010 or 11 maybe.
Mhm.
And so it was just a redraft league, like 12 team. I don't even think it was PPR. Like it was just regular old whatever 12 team league. And I had forgotten that the draft was even that night. I was that dude, like from a draft where you're like, hey, like, where are you? Like, don't make me put you on auto. Don't be that dude. Like it's funny how like that transforms still and it's still a thing, but I was that dude. And so Kamish calls me like, yo, where are you at? And I'm like, oh my gosh. So the draft was on my wife's birthday.
Oh no. Oh no.
Her sister was in town with her firstborn child that my wife and I were, inviting over to the house to hang out and kind of visit and hang out with the baby for the first time. And so possibly like the worst time ever for me to draft, but I brought my laptop out to the middle of the living room on my wife's birthday. I grabbed the baby. He was sitting. I still vividly remember this, and my wife does too, and she will still talk about it to this day about like, oh no, like this is going to change you kind of thing. And she still remembers me holding this, like, she was only like 10 months old, just sitting on my lap. And I'm like scrolling through ESPN, like sleepers and blah, 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 whatever, like rankings and whatnot. And I did not have the greatest looks from the in-laws that day for sure. But now in-laws, they weren't at that point. So they're like, Steph, maybe you should re-look this. But that's the majority of it right there, as far as like what I'm allowed to do and what I'm allowed to do independently, because that's really what a lot, like, yeah, this is not independent. You and I, the open bar, it's all interaction, but it's not with her. So it's all like independent and time away from her, and now time away from our son. And like, if that's for music, that's for teaching outside of the teaching hours.
Yeah.
That's for fantasy football. So I mean that, yeah, it all starts, I think, there. And but as far as like just comfort and I don't know, the improvisation and the ability to kick it is just like might be a lot of it from teaching, because it's sort of like a public speaking course that you just keep taking, year after year. And I'm still not like incredibly perfect at that. You know, transforming it into a podcast is certainly different than speaking in front of a lot of people. But I think there are similarities for sure. And I think also just like exposing yourself to that kind of stuff, like listening to podcasts. And I don't listen to a whole lot of podcasts anymore, just as far as time goes. But like I said, in my first years, it was just like pumping them into my ears, like, or into my veins, as people on Twitter say. I sound like a boomer.
It's okay.
But yeah, well, yeah, that, I don't know, just experience really, I guess. But like, I think you can, you know, take little bits and pieces from things that you do experience and then focus that energy into some sort of podcast or a rap about fantasy football or math or whatever the case. I don't know. I just, one of my I really like Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, because and one of my favorite lines from him is, you know, certainly braggadocious but just extra dope, is that he's talking about how good he is in like in another field and another field and another field, and he's just talking about like his, you know, his come up on YouTube making like stupid at home videos. Like that's where he started, which we watched those videos in high school, and he was not like incredibly big at that point. And then, but they were hilarious, you know, and you could tell that he was just super talented. And then he, you know, he would rap, and then he would do the acting, and he can sing his ass off. Like, that I love that. I want to put my hand in every single bag that I can possible. I can't sing, but
I mean,
I try to throw a hook together every once in a while on a fantasy football intro, but I just want to be you know, be good or be good at it. I don't
no,
you know.
that's good advice. So, what would you tell somebody? So, let's say they want to get involved in either a fantasy football podcast, or they want to start writing, or any form of awesomeness that comes with being in, you know, the fantasy community, but they're like either shy or they feel like it might be too much pressure. They're just not sure. They don't like change. What would you? Do you have any advice that you would give to somebody like that that wants to do it? They're just a little shy about it.
I think that there's certainly the cliche answer there, as far as like just getting out there, you know, on Twitter. It's just interacting. I always think about, because I tend to lurk a lot these days when I should be tweeting more, but I tend to lurk, and I observe and I look at people about how they've like just kind of grow at the snap of the fingers. And there's always like up to like 5 people that I kind of just monitor every year that just like explode. Like Elliot Christ comes to mind. Ray comes to mind. Ray GQ. Jesse Reeves comes to mind when he was, you know, propelling himself into that industry. Recently, I feel like Troy, or the Majuk girls.
Oh man, they skyrocketed real quick.
Absolutely. Yeah, shout out to them.
Yeah.
Kate, Michelle.
Yep.
And who did I say? Troy, Linda.
Troy.
I feel like they have. What's weird is like all those people they're not the same person like whatsoever. Like you put them in a line and there's no way that you could really group them personality wise, but they all have one thing in common, is that they put their personality out there. And I think that is the hardest part to do. I agree. It's so incredibly difficult. But it's probably one of the best places to do it, because ain't no one going to judge you except for the trolls, and the trolls only judge you once you get big. So it ain't a thing. Like if you got 200, 300, 500 followers, like no, like don't take this wrong way, but no one cares about you. And at the same time, like they also care about you. Like the people that are like attached to you in this short kind of circuit, they do care about you. But the people that don't matter,
Yeah.
don't care about you, which is weird. but it makes sense. I promise.
Well, like with like Troy and Linda and how you group them and everything, those two, like I feel are like some of the newest up and comers.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to see the different like levels of like, well, back in my day when we were doing fantasy analyzing, blah, blah, blah. And then not to say that one side or the other, it's not like turf war here, fantasy football turf war, but
Yeah.
it's just crazy too that there's so many people out there that are involved in the fantasy community that I've probably never met, that you've probably or at least talked to. Same for you. I just, it's just crazy how we're all connected through Twitter, like how that's a thing. I met you through the Scott Fish Bowl. I mean, we were in the same division together. How do you think that it's grown to be where it is? How do you think that all these new people are coming out and they're putting out bomb content? Is there, a reason it's still so it just keeps getting more popular and more popular?
I mean, I think people naturally want a sense of community. And I think that, and this isn't to speak to everyone, but I think that some people are missing that in their lives, and they're, whether consciously or subconsciously, seeking that. I think they want that interaction. They want that feeling that they may not have had, like either growing up or, in college, like, or at work, like it just isn't hitting right, and then, and I mean, I'm certainly one to admit that, like,
Yeah.
I have a pretty, like, I'm like, in quotes, friends with everyone, like, but you could probably more say that they're acquaintances.
Yeah.
And like, Peter always like talks about me on Twitter, like I'm like cool or something, like outside of Twitter. And I'm like,
I see that.
I know, like, I'm not, like, growing up, like I was a nerd in high school. Like I tried to fit in more so. Like I tried to wear flat billed caps. I tried to wear baggy clothes. I tried to fit in, and I don't know. I still had a pretty close knit group of friends that kind of didn't really waver on that. And I didn't have like a whole lot of friends in college. I didn't venture out too far besides the people that I grew up with in my hometown. Like my dorm roommate was my best friend growing up in my hometown, which like, looking back, I would not do that again. I love the dude to death, and I would not, I would do that again. And I loved it. But as far as like exposing myself to other people, I think it's important for just humans in general to do that, in any way, shape, or form. And that's kind of what I mean, is like, maybe that's not my vibe to do that so comfortably with people, person to person, human to human. And I need this, camera, this screen in front of me, or whatever, this mic in front of me to find a sense of comfort, and or my thumbs to find a sense of comfort or community with other people that they have to be like-minded to be able to fit so comfortably and meld with everyone else. Like there's got to be like a sliver of something that was missing externally from somewhere else that they brought in here, and they're like, yeah, this is different. This hits different.
Yeah, it does. It's, I mean, it's like, whoa, it's really trippy. I think one of the reasons too that I spend so much time on Twitter and talking to people about fantasy football and stuff is because nobody I know wants to talk to me about this stuff. Not one person I know really wants to sit down and have 30, 45, an hour, 2 hour, depending on who you're talking to, conversations. So to have a community that you can talk to, whether or not they agree with your opinion on a guy or what, to have that community where you can just like talk to other people about stuff that you love, that other people in your life just don't get. It's weird to think that you're just talking to a bunch of people on the internet, but at the end of the day, like, better than, I guess, journaling about it. I don't know.
I think that'll become more norm as life goes on. Like we think about that now as being different just because we didn't grow up with it. But
Yep.
now kids are going to grow up with that. That's going to become normal. So, yeah, I mean, and back to your point of like talking to anyone about, I like this player, I don't like this player. Like, it even gets deeper than that. Like, I can't even
Yeah.
believe like some of the things that I've shared with people on the internet, as weird as that sounds, like just being open and creating relationships that are beyond friendship, I think, at this point. And I have so many friends still back home on in my town of like 8,000 people, and I'll always remember them. I'll always come and kick it with them when I go back home. We'll always catch up the same way, but will we be able to like just kind of vibe like we can on Twitter? Like
Yeah.
any time that someone comes on the open bar, even if it's a new person, I'm like, what's good? Like I felt like I've already known you for years. And even if
Yeah.
I've only seen like 3 of your tweets, like I'm already ready to just like chop it up and have a beer with you. Like it's different. And the community is it's cliche as it sounds, it's what brings us together. So yeah.
And talking about coming on the open bar and people that you may not have even talked to in real life before, or even people that you have, but they're quote unquote bigger names. Because I know you guys have had a lot of like, fantasy football celebrities on your podcast, which is so dope. Did you ever get nervous when you first started not having to talk, but wanting to talk to these people, and you weren't so sure that it would come out like you knew what you were doing?
Maybe not the knowing what I was doing, because I think I know what I don't know.
You've got a lot of those
I think Socrates said that. I know nothing except that I know nothing. So yeah, I mean, I'm always, as far as fantasy football goes, I'm totally okay with that approach. But just talking to people that they have some sort of like sense of importance. I'm definitely not like 100% cool, calm, collected. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily like starstruck either. I just don't know how, because they've just had a different lifestyle, since being at my level. So I'm not sure what that looks like. And I can't exactly project what that looks like. But turns out, I mean, probably every single one of these guys and gals that I've had on that are, quote unquote, big time are
Yeah.
incredibly down to earth. Cause you got to remember that that's where they came from. Like they weren't just birthed into this, like I was thinking about that with Collinsworth's kid on Sunday Night Football. That's, he probably just was brought up in it and something like that. And a lot of the football announcers and whatever are like that. But think about that for fantasy football, like how stupid and hilarious that would be for
your
like,
baby. You got your baby.
yeah, like I bring my kid up in this fantasy football world, and I'm some like I'm not saying that now, but FF celebrity that like, like, oh, that's Gabe Gearing's son. He's gonna be an FF analyst, It's like, or even the kid, like, kind of the older ones that we recognize, Matthew Berry, like, is that what they expect out of his kids now? And like, because and I know a bunch of other people that have kids, like, it's funny, whereas like kids of, athletes, kids of announcers, they're already kind of birthed into it to a degree. They could take that path, but it's certainly not that way for fantasy football or analysis or whatever. So it's like that we have to remember that. And as far as like why I'm here to inspire people or whatever to start their podcast, and if and when they have quote unquote big names on there, like, yeah, that's a big deal because they've paved their way, and that is awesome and incredible, and it's awesome that they want to share that story with you. But it's like it's not a big deal. Like they were there too. So I mean, I've definitely talked to them and been like uncomfortable just because I haven't lived that life. But once you step in, 10, 15 minutes, it's all gravy. So
Well, now I'm just thinking that I'm doing this podcast just for me to listen back to and selfish reasons, because I have a couple of people that are going to come on that like I've never talked to, and also or like the quote unquote bigger names, and I'm like, because I know like you and all the homies are real chill, but they have a persona when they're on TV or when they're on the radio or when they're on the big name pods, and they're not allowed to act certain ways and do certain things. So it's like, yeah, I don't want to be like going overboard with it, but at the same time, I don't want to be some monotone, like same questions. How'd you get into fantasy football? So I
no,
mean,
that's not you, Casey. So I don't think you have to worry
I mean,
about that.
I'm trying to mix it up, because
Yeah.
I mean, I know I want this podcast ultimately to help people out that are nervous about it, because I know that when I started, it was terrifying, and I just nobody could really tell that I was terrified. But I mean, now I can do a podcast without drinking and things are fine. And that's the second time I've said that in a podcast, so I might have a problem. No, but I mean, it's just, but after like talking to Russ and talking to you and having more people lined up that I want to get to know better, I was thinking, I mean, there's going to be people out there that are just going to listen to this episode because they're like, dude, Gabe's on, or they're going to listen to just whatever episode because they're like, so-and-so's on. That's cool. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to have a conversation and help people out. And if you want to just tune in to, hear somebody shoot the shit, then awesome. I mean, I'm cool with that. And I know your show's probably the same way, not the same. I mean, you have your core group of people that come in and watch, and then you have the people that are like me who listen to it the next day at work. But as long as I guess we're listening to it, then we're getting a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. And that's what I like about your pod. And I know you've had a lot of like guests that people's jaws kind of just like hit the ground when they showed up. Have you had anybody that's come on your show that you've just been like, I can't believe that person wanted to come on and was like cool with it and stuff? Or a surprise or anything like that?
Right. I mean, well, even from, I mean, I've had him on Grab Bag and and we've had him on Open Bar, which reminds me, I got to hit him up again. But Matt Harmon was
Yeah, I
just,
got him.
yeah, good.
I was like, come on, buddy. And he's like, yeah, backyard banter. And I was like, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I know. That's the vibe. Yeah, no. But it's a new wave, right?
Yeah.
That was crazy. I guess just because it was, as far as Grab Bag went, it was the first that like, had a blue check mark or something, and
Yeah.
he was working at, I think, NFL at that point. And I'm like, this is kind of like a big deal or
Yeah.
something, like in my head, and it is, like I said, but
That's dope.
but it's hard to say Matt Harmon at the same time, though, just because of who the person is. Like,
Yeah.
he is the epitome of like, I am just a dude. And he is just so incredibly humble and just such a perfect person to be a fantasy football analyst, because a lot of people get in their feelings about how good they are, or how good their brand is about this, and he's grounded, and I will always appreciate Matt for that.
And you just brought up brand again, and I love that. I just absolutely love that. Like, if I could title this episode "Brand," like that's what I would title this episode, because to me, I was talking to my wife about this, because the people hating on like the bigger name fantasy analysts because they have personalities and they're on TV now and whatever, and they quote unquote dumb it down or whatever, right? Because they didn't use this stat and that stat. Okay. But that to kind of stay afloat, I guess, per se, in this industry that we're in, you kind of have to be yourself. And some people are better at, talking and being on camera and appealing to their audience, which could be everybody, the common fantasy football player to the crazy dynasty, I've got a million leagues can't keep up with them during this COVID stuff. So, I mean, brand. When you keep saying brand, how important is having a brand to being relative in the fantasy football world?
I mean, right now, I think it's everything. And I if you label this episode brand, you have to shout out Nick Ercolano, because he kind of inspired me about that. Like, just because there's just so much influx of podcasts and articles and shows and stats and blah 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 blah, and it's like, all right, but what are you bringing personally? Because that
Yeah.
is what is important. What makes your show unique? Because this show has that same stat. How are you presenting it? What makes it unique? Because it's a stat, it's there, but how are you presenting it? How are you making it unique? Are you putting it into a dynasty game night? You know, are you putting it in the open bar and comparing it to a favorite vegetable or something? I don't know. Like, just I like, if that's what you're there for, is the entertainment, because I think we can get just super brain dead, like just piling on all of this like information that's just regurgitated and put into someone else's mouth and regurgitated and put into someone else's mouth, is like, it just gets tiresome. And that's what happened to me with, honestly, with listening to podcasts. It was like, it's a lot of the same stuff here. And that's like absolutely no disrespect to anyone making a podcast at all. It's just, and maybe I'm like starting to figure out this for myself, like as we speak on this podcast, of like, I wanted something else in a show that was going to bring me in, that was more than just informational. And I will say that people can, like I've said about Waldman and Sigmund, that people can speak very well and super interestingly with statistics, and that to me is interesting. And maybe what I'm bleeding into here is like understanding your fan base and understanding who you're speaking to and kind of what they want, and catering to what they want. And, you know, you talked about the upper people, that there's not as much navigation for them, but they still brought a personality from somewhere, and that's exactly how they got there. So that is their brand, is them as a person. And that can happen with anyone on Twitter or on a YouTube show or whatever the case may be. So it's just, I don't know. I can't give you like what a brand is. Like, I can't solve for X, you know, and give you this brand and hand it to you on a silver platter and be like, this is what it's going to take to make you unique in fantasy football. I think that's developed as you go, or maybe it's an idea that you come up with initially that you want to start with and then run with and maybe expand and go in different directions, kind of like what you're doing here, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned Dynasty Game Night. I think that's really unique. I think there's some other shows out there that have potential to be like super special and like really unique to just the podcasting universe. So I don't know. Did that answer your question? I like when I'm like so everywhere when I speak.
No.
Like, I'm like,
That's exactly what I want. Look, I want this podcast to just be me sitting back and letting the guest of honor tell the world who they are. Because I am starting to get more comfortable with this whole asking questions to people thing. It still feels kind of forced, I guess, even though like I'm tight with you. Like, it just feels like, you know, I want to make sure that there's enough content, you know, but I feel like having a brand, you have plenty of stuff to talk about. You know, you could talk about, I'm sure people would love to hear you talk about your favorite vegetables, like you were saying, or all the drafts you guys do, all the funny, you know, and that's part of your brand. You know, your show is super quotable. There's always like t-shirt slogans that can be made from your shirt. It's like, or from your show. And I know whenever I'm in the chat of your show, that's one thing that I like too, is that you guys interact with the people that are in the chat talking to you guys too. A lot of podcasts, you know, either they go by too fast and they don't care to look at them, or, you know, they don't have a following of people who come in and like actually chat it up. But you guys seem to have like a nice core following that comes in there.
And that's more on just the people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like I think, I mean, ultimately, like, is from like a business standpoint, like J Mike and I don't care about this, like, as as much as far as like expanding a brand. Like,
Right.
we have a brand, and that we're just comfortable in, and
Mm-hmm.
we could certainly talk about like what can we do to expand this brand, because neither J Mike or myself are super involved in Twitter as we should be if we were to you know, take this to the next level or
Right.
whatever. Like, and not to say like going onto Twitter and just like spamming Twitter is a good idea with your things. Like, I think you have to do it in a unique way, and I think people are starting to develop that. And it's
Mm-hmm.
sort of what I'm more interested in, wanted to do myself, as far as like whatever my brand is like, I think there, I think I kind of mock myself for writing intros for fantasy football, just because I think that's funny. I think fantasy football is funny.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely great that we're all like nerding out and like love this thing, and we have this community, but like nuts and bolts, like, it's funny.
Yeah.
that
Nerding
that
out. I
there's
was like, yeah,
yeah,
we're a bunch of nerds.
I know. It's so silly. So it's like, I just I want to continue to mock that. It's hard to find a balance of like am I mocking this to the point of like insulting people, or like to like a troll type of status, or am I like actually being entertaining at the
Mhm.
same time? So I think that's
Yeah.
uh something that interests me.
Yeah, and another like important thing, I guess, for your brand, but not only just for your brand, just like for being a human being that's decent and everything, is don't be an asshole on Twitter. You see the assholes, and it's like, oh, I was just trying to be funny. No, were you? You could cross the line, or the ones that just straight up just troll you. Don't, and then people just start back and forth with those people, which I love to do, but. Uh, when you see somebody like, I'm sure you've seen plenty of people being assholes on the internet. It's a common occurrence. Uh, when you see that kind of stuff go on, and does it phase you any? Do you ever see anything directed towards yourself that would make you maybe feel a little like, or do you see anything towards like people that you respect, and it kind of just makes you think like, what's going on with you? Why are you being a dick?
Um, I do my best to avoid that at all, just because
Yeah.
I think that people uh naturally, once the moment that you engage in that, it's like an alcoholic. Like, the
Mhm.
moment that you relapse and take a sip, it's
Yep.
like you're done. The moment that you interact with that tweet,
Yeah.
you're done. And you're just gonna keep rolling into that conversation, into another thread. And not to say that like we shouldn't protect each other, that we
Yeah.
shouldn't, hold that sacred, and especially when it comes to like women or race, especially
Yep.
that bothers me the most, I think. But
Mhm.
that's, I guess there's that the women thing, certainly in like fantasy football and just sports in general. It's like, it's so weird to me. Like, guys are so stupid, but it's like, what are you talking about? It's like,
Oh,
oh
yeah.
my God. There's just so much like irony, like
Yeah.
that guys don't understand when they're like, okay, but who would you start? Like, like, they just can't get over themselves. But
Uh,
yeah, so that's really sad,
yes,
I
yes,
don't
it will.
know. I like, it's certainly a thing I struggle with, because I don't know how to fix it. And I think sometimes like that I sadly like avoid those types of things when I should be like maybe stepping in and like protecting people. I think that's important. Like I said, I don't know when it stops. I don't know where the edge is and where, if we can even stop it. And realistically, I don't really think we can, like certainly not in this lifetime. So I don't know if it's hard. Like, I don't know if we're wasting time. I don't know if this is helping. But at the same time, I want to be good to the people that I care about and protect them. So
no, I get that. I mute people all the time because I'm not going to give them the satisfaction that I block them. It's just like, okay, I mute you and I'll move along. But yeah, it doesn't happen with me as often when it comes to like, you're a woman, this, that, and the other. But that stuff really does, really piss me off when I see like, oh, well, of course a dumb chick said that. Like, you don't know anything about football. It's like, bruh, come on. Don't even start. There are way too many women in this industry that know more shit about fantasy football than you do.
yeah.
So
yeah, the moment I heard Katie Flower open her mouth on UTH, I was like,
yeah,
like I said, I know nothing.
She is a brain. She is a whiz at all that stuff.
I couldn't believe it.
She's in my redraft league. So that's always fun. She's like playing with a bunch of like people that don't know what they're doing. I'm like, oh goodness. Yep. Here comes Katie. She got it all. And they're like, oh, thank you for telling me my player's good. She's like, yeah. I mean, he did this in college, his senior year.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
right. I know. She'll take it back on you for sure.
Yeah. So that's pretty dope. You have been like a well of knowledge. I mean, just getting to talk to you and have you just like basically just put it out there and just be like, this is what's up with me. I am who I am. And I'm voting for hookers. Strippers, not hookers.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, my bad.
I think that's illegal.
A little too far. Taking it a little too far. Austin Hooper.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Austin Hooper. No, the last question I want to ask you, because I meant to ask you this earlier, is because this was brought up to me and I thought it was pretty interesting. How do you feel knowing that people only know how you rap at 1.5 speed?
That is so. Is to answer your question about things that bother me, like on Twitter. It's not about like trolls, like commenting on my jean short outfit and my long hair, my crop top Texas jersey. It's not that. It's and I shouldn't even say this publicly, but it's any time that they mention that because it just like you don't even understand, man. You just don't understand what we're doing here and what I'm doing to put it into a position at this many beats per minute. And this many bars. It's like, dude, it doesn't sound good at 1.5. No. You're wrong.
Well, yeah. Well, we were talking about that. Russ and I were talking about that because I was like, I've done it before. Like, the first time I at least like to slow down and listen to it. I'm like, but sometimes I'm at work and I only have like this amount of time, so I'll do it. And I was like, whoa, this does not sound anything like it's supposed to. So, guys, if you're gonna do anything, slow it back down. Listen to Gabe. That's what you need to do.
I need it in my profile. Like, slow down my intros, please.
You really do.
Or not slow down, but like put them at regular
normal speed. Yeah. Like Twista over here. Bust a bus, just going. I'm like,
I know. I'm like,
I don't know.
Damn, I can't rap that fast, but I know somebody who can.
Twista.
I think I've actually used that GIF like on Twitter when someone was talking about the whole 2 times thing, and I'm like, go away. I can't rap that fast.
I mean, who can listen to a podcast at 2 times? I'm not going to get into that. I can do the 1.5, and when I write for the Ballers, I have to write about their episode. I have to like slow it down to like 0.5 so I can get everything. Yep. So if you're listening to it at 2, you're not getting anything. Come on, guys. Let's be respectful to the podcast, to the musician. Just listen to
that
the
part,
art,
please.
Okay, just the musician. It's at the beginning. Sometimes it's at the end too. You could fast forward to the end, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really appreciate you coming to talk to me. Like, you were one of the first people I thought of because you're just a dope dude, plain and simple.
Hey.
Hey, all those compliments. But before we go, because I can't remember, because I'm just, it's just such a late night. It's 7:43. Where can we find you, or where can I find you, and the people, I guess, that are listening to this podcast, where we can find you, what you doing, how's life, and so on and so forth.
Well, yeah, speaking on brand, FF Man Bun. You know,
Yay.
I used to literally have that handle of grab bag fantasy, and I didn't even know what that meant. I was just like, you know, kind of how I said earlier, I want my hands in all these different bags of IDP and DFS. I think that's kind of where my mind was going. But then I don't even know how it happened, but Bosch was involved, and it was something clown in the man bun, and it got into FF Man Bun, and he's like, you know, do it or something. I'm like, done. You know, it's just
That's
like,
awesome.
it's like whatever. Because I
I kind of think I remember something about Bosch and all that, but
yeah,
I mean,
because that's what I mean. Like no one cares about you. Like they do in the community, and they're gonna get a kick out of that, and that's what it's all
yeah,
about.
for
Is
sure.
FF Man Bun. That's all I did it for. I'm not so yeah. Pay no mind to the haters, man. FF Man Bun though, I don't care about me. I care about my guy, my dude that I'm sure you will have on this podcast
Yes,
at
for
some
sure.
point. J My Check. We run the open bar pod, I think is the handle there. Tuesdays, 9:30 Eastern ish. Heavy on the ish. See, brand. So come kick it with us. The live is where it's at. In the chat, it's always fun. And the so-called chat, excuse me, I didn't say that publicly. And then you know, you can listen on 2 times the next day as well. You might have to with the open bar, just because we run, you know, 2 hours or so, and you definitely want to finish that in an hour, I think, for time's sake. But yeah, we're just kicking it, the open bar, baby. Thank you, Casey. You were the first lady of the open bar. As I know this isn't live on. We're not live, are we?
No, not yet.
On YouTube, they're not.
I'm just now learning how to like get your hooker shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, much love to you, because you are a great person, a rad person. One of the few people that I've gotten to meet in person. Mm-hmm. I actually bought some crackberry cider the other day, buddy. thinking about you. So
dope.
And I haven't tried it yet, so maybe
it's so good.
I'll have one tonight.
Yes, let me know.
An homage, or to pay homage. But yeah, so thank you. I don't know what this was, but thank you.
Thank you. It's our therapy session.
Hey-o. I know. Hey. It kind of felt that way. I'm like, yeah, so